Good afternoon, everybody. So this is post 2 for this week's module, and you basically got to pick up 3 questions from each chapter posted up. So the ones I picked was writing from chapter 3, writing initiation, from section 3.2, page 91. Basically, um, writing initiation within the movie. The Color Festival, when I feel like Todd, he just let go of his, he wasn't resisting the cultural difference and shocks and everything, and we'll get to that later. And he welcomed a new festival, basically participating in it. And the festival was meant to be the change of seasons, much like him, and changing and being more acceptable of the culture. So he was going through that change of season, in a sense. Another example was when his neighbor or consultant asked him or invited him for food within his own family, and they sat around, and even the little boy kind of accepted him into it when he gave back the cell phone. The second one is acculturation and culture shock on section 6.3, page 113. Talks about the differences between culture patterns of what you're used to and then being thrown into a whole different culture. The example in the movie was pretty much the first quarter of the entire movie, when he was just thrown into India after he was told that his whole shop was going to get outsourced to go into India. And he was supposed to train up the next guy that was going to be the local manager. So some of the smaller examples, like the taxi, asking for a taxi, comes out to be motorcycle. He was not expecting that whatsoever. The vendor that was trying to sell him some type of drink or ice, the family bringing him in, kind of babying him for first couple of weeks or so, teaching him how to do things. There was a scene from the bathroom that was basically a hole in the ground instead of an actual toilet. New work area, the chaos within the new work area, all the different people, and then them having a altar in a corner, and then a cow just kind of moseying around everywhere. Going to McDonald's expecting a burger, but instead I got a veggie burger. So there's just some of those small examples, even for that piece of acculturation and culture shock altogether. Prejudice and the stereotypes being the third question, section 2.3 on page 88 and 89. Just talking about overgeneralization of a culture or negative connotations of a culture. The Todd did more so of the Americans, like the stereotypical of the Americans, versus the he did have some passive stuff he was talking about. Even his conversation with Asha on the boat, on the ferry, they're kind of imitating each other. So that was kind of one that stuck out for me. Going back to him saying more things about Americans than anybody else, like the hot iron skillet branding thing. And then there was another conversation between Todd and Asha that they were talking about how it was strange for him, thinking that why was she promised to marry somebody since she was young, the whole not having a choice, so on and so forth, was a strange thing for him. And then she kind of rebutted back, talking about how the 50% divorce rate for Americans, and we have all of these choices, and yet we still get to do, stuck in the same job and all, so on and so forth. So, and then that was it. And then we jump into chapter 4 questions. I was asking you to utilize the jury window into one of the main characters. I picked Todd. First one, it's known to you and others. So he was, being from American, thinking everything is better there, or there meaning America, than it is in India. Second one is unknown to Todd, but for others, he was oblivious of the culture. Everybody knew what was going on, but they really didn't say anything. Maybe they were somewhat scared. Who knows? Third is him with knowing things for himself, but not for others. He was just kind of keeping things under the wrap. Was basically talking about this. This was his job security thing. He wasn't going to do that long term. He was just there, and then you start seeing that morphing into something else as the relationships built, and he started getting more acceptable and understanding of the culture. And he did also withheld the fact that he had some marital problems before he took off, or relationship problems, right? Fourth is unknown to everybody, even for himself. And I think we saw a glimpse of that when he was actually sort of falling for Asha, and then Asha falling for him. It was just kind of like a spur of the moment thing. They were kind of nudging each other left and right, kind of the flirtatious type. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it was kind of like the perfect storm, and they just kind of hit it off after that. The second question I picked was section 3 in chapter 4. Talks about different identities, and we had to pick 2 identities that for a character. And again, I picked Todd. One of them was the ethnicity identity, or national identity, where he just wanted to hold on as long as he could to his American ways, the American culture. And then they finally have that scene at McDonald's where that one other American guy is saying, the more you fight it, the more issues you're going to have. Just don't fight it, basically. Just accept it. You're here, and that's just the end of it. Let go, basically. And then the second one is organizational self-identity. Because of his job, security again, more money, more promises, more stocks, more status, trying to make the goal of 6 minutes, not within the 6 minutes, only to find out that he was going to get his whole group was going to get outsourced again. And then we see that whole conflict, right, that he had. He didn't want to do it, and then it goes back and forth. And then the third one is section 5.4 on page 151. It's talking about different relationships and different relationships building on into other things. And you're supposed to pick 3 and then kind of talk about the scenes where you kind of see that relationship form or solidify within itself. So I picked the one with Auntie when he first got to India, and like she brought him in, she was trying to explain things. This is how we do business, and you see that relationship forming when she was like kind of being kind of a mother auntie type of person to him. Oh, your mom doesn't do that. Oh, you don't sleep with, you don't stay with your parents. Blah blah. All of this stuff, and then teaching them how about the different hand things, right versus left. So that was a relationship thing that started forming. All of a sudden, he's joking around, going back and forth with her, and he's asking about her, and so on and so forth. And then the other one is with Peru, and him just basically becoming that relationship being built as if they were started as co-workers, and then all of a sudden they started being more kind of like a brother relationship, best friend type of relationship. And then the scene to me was when he comes out with the food, noticing that Todd is having a really hard time. So he's like caring for him, and then Todd finally realizes it, clicks on him. He goes, "Hey, what's all this about?" And then there's a whole dialogue. He's like, "Hey, you look bad, so I brought you some food. This is gonna make you feel better." And he goes, "Oh, okay, well, I appreciate that." And then there was the third person was Asha. Sorry, I made some notes and it's all chicken scratch. Willing to help. So Asha was trying to help him out with the job at first, and you see that relationship building a little step further. Now she's kind of like that acting / assistant manager for the whole shop, and then she's giving him advice. I'm like, hey, maybe you should learn a little more about the Indian culture. And then she's willing to take him to go find the missing shipment, and then that turns into a whole relationship. They're flirting with each other, they're having that conversation, and then all of a sudden it just builds up, and you see that relationship even last after he left and went back to the United States. With all of those three, you see him coming back to the States, not really caring anymore what he's doing, he's just happy, and he's going after his parents, is talking to his parents over and over again. And then Asha, is actually calling him when she was actually supposed to marry somebody else, right? So there's that relationship that lasted a long time. But those are my 6 questions from chapter 3 and 4. And that's everything I got. So you guys have a good night.